G'day folks, Mike from Distant Hills Touring. I just thought I'd give a quick update on some of the changes I've made to the camper trailer since I last talked about the work that has been going on our Swan 2016 model. And probably the most notable changes since the battery system and all those things which I've talked about in the past is pulling out the gas fridge. So I had a gas electric fridge in the camper trailer, and also putting in a diesel heater. They're probably the two noticeable things and the major things that I've done. So I know you can get Dometic does some fridges, Bushman does some fridges, but we went down the road of just grabbing a King's 80 litre fridge. I think it was on special for around $400. Look, I know they've got their issues, and I know a lot of people say they're no good, but we've had this thing in here, I don't know, quite a few trips now, and we haven't had any problems. Draw's not too bad. Draw's a bit over 2.4 amps when it's humming along, but we find it works quite well. Anyway, before I start waffling, let me just show you what we've done. So you'll see here the setup is the 80 litre fridge on the bottom, and then I've put in a drawer up above. So the way of pulling the other fridge out is simply as a couple of screws at the very back. It's not complex at all. Once they're released, and once you've pulled out the gas line and undone the 12 volt supply, it's a piece of cake just to drag it out. It is not difficult at all, let me tell you. It comes out forward, so there's a little bit of messing around, but yeah. So then we went off and just bought the fridge. It slides easily into that hole there. So the 80 litre fridge, you know, there's a 110 litre, but we went for the 80 litre fridge, and then I went off and put a drawer at the top. So this is just on drawer runners that you bought from Bunnings. Again, nothing too difficult. And we just store our cutlery and that sort of stuff in there, so that's how we got around that. There's just a simple lock here that locks it in place, so as we're driving, obviously we don't want stuff falling out. On the sides here, because the fridge is a bit smaller than the gap, I just bought some angle. So these are aluminium angle, and I just simply spray painted these angles here, and then they slide in and fill up the gap. And then I just got some foam, how do you describe that, that goes in here and down the sides here to stop the dust from coming through, because obviously it's still open at the back. The fridge itself, let me just open it up. Suits our needs, enough to put your 2 litre milk containers, other bits and pieces. At the moment it's mostly just a veggies fridge, to be honest with you. There is a small freezer. We don't have anything in there, but we have in the past run with ice blocks and that sort of stuff in there. And then you'll see up the top here is some controls. I think we've set it to about 3 degrees. And that seems to work quite well. We've got to be a bit careful because sometimes it does freeze the veggies that are in there as well. Yeah, there's not really much else to talk about that from that perspective. One quick thing to note, I don't know the legalities around it, is that when I disconnected the gas line, I'm pretty sure it needs to be checked, but you can buy the brass fitting that goes on. So there's a fitting just underneath the van, and that brass fitting, so there's like a valve so you can turn on your gas to your fridge or not, and that brass fitting just screws on to the end of that. I might go outside and I'll just show you that, so hang on. So under here, as I was saying, this is the actual valve to turn the gas supply on, and it went straight up through the floor here, and you'll see there's a brass fitting that you can buy that just screws on there, and that means no gas. Even if I turn this fitting on, no gas can actually get through. So it's as simple as that. There are these vents at the back too, obviously. The bottom one, I'm not sure if they'll show up real well. The bottom one draws the air in, and then it exits up the top. When we bought the van, it came with a it's like a cooling system, I suppose, with fans that get mounted in there, and when they reach a certain temperature, it actually pulls the hot air out. We had that, so I just installed that as well. So yeah, so that's basically it from that perspective. not a difficult and onerous installation. I thought it would be, but yeah, just do your research. It's not difficult throwing those things in. And like I said, the King's fridge, a lot of people say they're not real good. You can do fan mods, you can do all sorts of stuff to them to make them more efficient. We've just left it and we haven't had a problem. So yeah, that's how we dealt with that. Let me just take you around and we'll have a look at the diesel heater. Okay, the diesel heater installation. A lot of people, when they put their diesel heaters in, they put them over on the battery side. So under the front couch, on the battery side, which will be the driver's side, if you're looking from that perspective, they mount them underneath there. The battery setup that we've got is quite large, and I didn't really want to start mounting things that get really hot really close to the battery. So I decided to put it on the passenger side, and it's easy access to the storage hatch at the front. So let me just show you that. So this here obviously is the storage hatch, and you crack that open, and then there is our installation in there. It's not ideal because it's at a funny angle, but I wanted to maximize my airflow. So this here is where it sucks the air in that it's going to warm up, puts it through the diesel heater itself, and obviously there's a combustion process that happens, and then that warms the air up and then pushes it out through a pipe, you'll see here, and that goes inside, and I'll show you that in a moment. The installation from this, look, to be honest with you, the most scary part is you've got to drill with a really big hole saw a really big hole through the floor of your camper trailer. I measured 4 million times before I even considered drilling any holes, but it's not a huge drama. The place where I've mounted the fuel tank is actually in the front bay, which is in the front boot of the van itself. It's just mounted against the wall there, and it's, yeah, that was probably the best place that I could think of mounting it. Some people mount them behind the spare tyre at the very back, but I just like it that it's secure and you can lock the front boot anyway, so it's nice and secure from that perspective. Okay, this is going to be a very funny angle, but let me just show you what it looks like underneath here. So this is how I mounted. So this is obviously the unit's mounted above the floor, and this is what you can see that comes from underneath. So here's your exhaust line that comes out. It's a very stubby short exhaust line that comes out. Again, some people mount them on the other side of this strut here from not the suspension, from the A-frame, but I wanted it all on this side, and that way you know, it didn't sort of contain any exhaust sort of underneath the van. So that's how I sort of dealt with it. You'll see here's the exhaust coming out. There's fresh air that obviously you need for the combustion of the diesel, and that's what this thing here is. And you'll see there's a fuel line that comes out, and that fuel line joins into here, which is the electrical line, runs underneath. If I get right underneath, you can see it runs in. There is the fuel pump, which is on the left there, and then there's a small filter, and then that goes up into the boot bay through a already existing hole, which was from the gas line. So installation wise, it's just a bit of messing around. All comes in the kit. So this is just purely, you know, a Chinese diesel heater. I don't know, they're relatively cheap these days. It wasn't very expensive at all. Just bought it through eBay, and it comes with enough fuel line, electrical line, and all that sort of stuff to be able to do the installation. For me, it probably took 2 weekends, but again, I'm fastidious and think about things for a long time before I actually do anything. And then inside, let me bring it inside. This is where I mounted the controller. This is next to the radio unit, and obviously behind the wall in here is where the actual unit is, and that there is the controller that controls everything. And you'll see around the side here, this is the vent where the hot air actually comes out of. So that's kind of how I went about doing it. There's 4 million ways of doing it, but that was kind of what I did. And then finally, because I'm fastidious with all the electrical stuff, you'll see here this is the main battery switch, so there's a light on for that, and then I put in a separate circuit for the heater, so it can be completely isolated. I like doing that. So it just runs through a relay, flick the switch, light goes on, which provides power then to the actual heater service. And yeah, that's how it sort of works. So it's not permanently got power range to the heater service. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way that I thought of isolating as best as I could. I think we've got a 5 kilowatt heater, which is probably way too big for this size van. Apparently they do soot up. This one seems to go through some cleaning cycle every time you turn it off. Not sure if that helps, but I don't know, it does what it does. But as far as warming the van up, it is excellent. Flip it on, does make a fair amount of noise. So we don't sleep with it. It really just goes on in the evenings or in the mornings, obviously only if it's cold. Yeah, so that works well for us. They're the two main things that we've done since I last talked about bits and pieces on the van. There's always things to sort out and things to improve. Yeah, I might just quickly mention too, as far as the dust goes in the van, we just did a very dusty road, about 50-60 k's worth, and surprisingly there is very little dust inside. I do close up the vent on the door just with a piece of cardboard and some duct tape, but other than that, yeah, look, the van's doing really well. We're happy with it. Meets our needs. Everything, anyone who's bought a van or a camper trailer or whatever knows it's all a compromise, but for us, the Swan seems to be working quite well for us. So yeah, alright folks, I'll leave it there. Things to think about if you're considering a Swan or putting a fridge in or putting a heater in. Happy to answer any questions if you want to fire me questions, and I can go into more detail too if you guys are interested. Alright, catch you on the next one. See you later.